Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian claims that the Islamic Republic is trying to reach a serious and good agreement despite Western skepticism. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin reaffirms Washington's unwavering commitment to Israel's security in the face of Iranian threats. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid dubs Israel-Egypt relations as vital for regional stability. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian claims that the Islamic Republic is trying to reach a serious and good agreement. However, in Tehran's view, thus far it has not received constructive or forward-looking proposals from the United States. These remarks were voiced by the Ayatollah regime's top diplomat ahead of yesterday's resumption of talks in the Austrian capital Vienna, following voiced allegations by the United States, France, Britain, and Germany, blaming the Islamic Republic for not taking the nuclear negotiations seriously. Nevertheless, the European Union's External Action Service political director, Enrique Mora, who coordinates the talks in Vienna, held a press briefing after meeting the respective delegations, voicing an impression of a renewed sense of purpose.
What I felt this morning was from all delegations, not only the Iranian one, all delegations, a renewed sense of purpose and the need to work and to reach an agreement on bringing the JCPOA back to life. This is my impression from this morning. Whether that will be confirmed and endorsed by negotiations on the details, we will see the coming days.
It is important to stress that while the EU, alongside Russia and China, have seemingly sided time and again with the Iranian narrative, as part of which the United States is to blame for Iran's recent leap toward nuclear weapon capabilities, and therefore the ultimate necessity for Washington to succumb to Tehran's demands to lift all sanctions imposed on the Ayatollah regime before the latter would gradually limit its nuclear progress. Nevertheless, neither the United States nor Germany, France, and Britain are willing to negotiate a revival of a so-called JCPOA under what Berlin termed as unrealistic terms. And while under the terms of the 2015 deal, U.S. and European sanctions on select proliferation-linked entities are set to lapse as early as 2023, and advanced centrifuge restrictions begin to sunset as early as 2024, the United States under the Biden administration continues to regard the so-called JCPOA as the best way to ensure that Iran can never acquire a nuclear weapon.
At the present moment, we remain focused on diplomacy and focused on diplomacy to see if it can deliver a mutual return to compliance with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. We continue to believe that a mutual return to compliance with the JCPOA is possible. And we believe, again, that diplomacy and coordination with our closest allies, our European allies that are part of the P5+1, but also the partners that are part of that configuration, provides the best, the most durable means for addressing our collective concerns with Iran's nuclear program and for addressing what it is that all of us seek, and that is to ensure that Iran can never acquire a nuclear weapon.
The remarks by the State Department spokesman were made shortly before Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a meeting with visiting Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz. And while naturally refusing to speak to any contingency planning taking place, Price confirmed that alternative options are being deliberated to ensure that Iran is never able to acquire a nuclear weapon.
I wouldn't want to speak to contingency planning. I wouldn't want to speak to what we might be contemplating if the path for diplomacy towards a mutual return to compliance isn't viable in the near term. But we are discussing those alternatives. We are discussing those options with our close partners, with our close allies, and that includes with the Israelis. We have already had good discussions with the Israelis about the path forward and how we can work together to ensure that Iran is never able to acquire a nuclear weapon.
Meanwhile, during a meeting held at the Pentagon between U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Defense Minister Benny Gantz, the former seized the opportunity to reiterate Washington's unwavering commitment to Jerusalem's security.
As you know, the United States remains unwavering in its commitment to Israel's security, including maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge. We share Israel's deep concerns about the Iranian government's destabilizing actions, including its support for terrorism, its missile program, and its alarming nuclear advances. Mr. Minister, we are completely aligned in our commitment to preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. This is a national security interest of the United States and Israel and the world.
Secretary Austin went on to highlight the U.S. concern over Iran's nuclear actions in recent months and highlighted the U.S. Defense Department's commitment to work with all of Washington's partners in the region to address the wide range of Iranian threats.
I'm deeply concerned about the Iranian government's nuclear actions in recent months, both its continued provocations and its lack of constructive diplomatic engagement. The President has made clear that if diplomacy fails, we are prepared to turn to other options. The Department of Defense will continue to work closely with all of our partners throughout the region, including Israel first and foremost, to ensure that we're working together to address Iranian threats. We will defend ourselves, we will defend our friends, and we will defend our interests.
Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz, for his part, highlighted the characteristics of the U.S.-Israel partnership, which he asserted to be founded on trust, all the while emphasizing the need to confront the Iranian threat, which is not merely an Israeli problem.
There is no stronger and more unshakable bond than that between Israel and the United States. One based on shared values, on common strategic interests, and as you yourself said, Mr. Secretary, during your visit to Israel last April, our bond is based on trust. I look forward to deepening our dialogue and cooperation vis-à-vis Iran, including the topics of joint military readiness to face Iran and to stop its regional aggression and nuclear aspiration.
Jerusalem's top defense official continued by highlighting the importance of ensuring Israel's qualitative military edge in the region, which guarantees Israel's security on the one hand and bolsters its regional standing on the other, regarded by the United States as an encouraging reality which it hopes to build upon.
I'm encouraged by our long-standing partnership and by Israel's growing new partnerships with other countries in the region. The relationships being forged today by Israel, Bahrain, the UAE, Morocco, and others open up new opportunities for shared responsibility, growing prosperity, security cooperation, and people-to-people ties. I applaud the courageous steps of countries like Morocco, where you, Minister Gantz, recently signed an historic defense memorandum that will increase intelligence sharing, research, and joint military training.
It is interesting to know that while Israel bolsters its relations with the Kingdom of Morocco, the latter's eastern adversary, Algeria, is working to deepen its involvement with the Palestinians. Earlier this week, Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas held a meeting with his Algerian counterpart Abdelmajid Tebboune, where the latter pledged Algiers' unwavering support for the Palestinian cause and announced his intention to host rival Palestinian factions to assist in reconciliation talks in the near future.
خديت الرخصة من أخي الرئيس أبو مازن أننا سنجمع كل الفرقاء الفلسطينيين في الجزائر في أقرب وقت إن شاء الله.
It is interesting to know that to date, Egypt acted as the key broker of talks between rival Palestinian factions. However, in recent weeks, the Islamist Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, has increasingly voiced frustration with Cairo officials over a claimed bias in Israel's favor. Separately, upon return from Egypt last night, Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid highlighted the unique and improved relations between Cairo and Jerusalem.
בתחילתו של היום הארוך הזה, בשיחתי עם הנשיא הסיסי, דיברנו על זה שהחיבור בין ישראל למצרים הוא חיבור של עוצמה. עוצמה כלכלית, עוצמה ביטחונית, עוצמת השותפות בין המדינה הערבית הגדולה והחשובה ביותר לבין ישראל, והעוצמה הזו עומדת היום לטובת הטיפול בנושאים כמו איראן, כמו כלכלת תמורת ביטחון בעזה, ושיתופי פעולה כלכליים שכמותם עוד לא היו בינינו.